Welcome back to the 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the velvet pimp hand, the cotton candy pimp hand. So, there's a couple of news stories and there's a couple of articles that I came across that give you the perception that there are things that are being forced upon people, but it's being laid out in a way that it benefits everybody else. But it's clearly detrimental to the welfare of everyone. And I'm going to start with this news story that was in USA Today, July 17th. So that was last week. And it basically says, the Army will force female soldiers to shower with biological males. This is a real story. This is not something that's made up. So what it's saying is that the Army and other branches are going to allow transgender women to shower with regular females. And it's saying that even though these transgender women have not had surgery to remove their male parts, they can still go into the showers with women and they have penises. Now, there's a story also this week that's in the news about this convict in a New Jersey penitentiary that was a transgender woman, got 4 female inmates in his female prison pregnant. This is a problem. This is clearly a problem. That guy that went into that prison did that so he could be among women and not feel threatened by men. But this guy had an agenda the entire time. So he's in jail having sex with women in a female's prison. That sounds like some low-budget porn movie. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to disagree with you on one point. He may not have planned to go into prison. See, here's the question. That it doesn't matter, but this is the question. Was he a transgender like 2 or 3 years ago? He commits the crime. He wasn't trying to go to prison. But since they don't know what to do with the dude, so they just stick him in a woman's prison because they don't want him being beat up in the male prison. They don't want him getting raped in the male prison, so they put him in the women's prison. But instead of him, coasting and keeping his mouth shut, he had to knock up 2 women. So that just shows you this is not some brainiac. You understand what I'm saying? I don't think that this was his intention. I think this happened, and he just, I'm gonna capitalize. I'm stupid. That's all. I think he's so stupid that he's dangerous to himself. So put his ass in regular prison with straight men or prison, whatever prison men are called, and survival of the fittest.
That is that instance how a man used the system to take advantage of it to have sex with women in jail. In the military, there's enlisted women in the showers that can now be raped by a chick with a dick.
The reason that's so scary, because this is something that nobody wants. You're trying to be fair. You're trying to be all these different things. But the bottom line is that women are assaulted in the military quite a bit. It was maybe 2 or 3 years ago where these women kept coming up missing. Like literally, they would speak up, they come up missing, they would complain. Rapes take place in the military quite a bit. All this is violence against women. And the idea that this is okay or this is progressive, that is all bullshit. This is simply women are a minority. This is violence against women. And the problem is, here's the other part that makes it really difficult, is that when you try to explain to a woman that she's a minority, she will argue with you. And this is where the whole feminine thing goes backwards. Women sometimes don't realize that they're a minority. A minority is not just race. Sex makes you a minority. And this is one of these situations where a woman will get abused, get raped, get all kinds of stuff happen, and the other women will complain, well, she's a transgender, and yeah, she's a transgender, but until the penis is gone and the strength from puberty is gone, it's not an equal fight. It's not fair. It's not right. So I'm not saying that men or women shouldn't have the surgery. I'm not saying that a man can't transition. Not saying that at all. What I'm simply stating is the fact that if you still got a penis, you should not be showering with women. That's what I'm saying.
So I'm going to go into these documents a bit, these military documents, and read what it says, in particular regarding specific rules. So in one part it says, commanders may consider alternate observation options. Options could include observation by a different observer or medical personnel of the same gender as the soldier. There's different vignettes. And in this 8th vignette, it says, basically, reluctant ladies are out of luck. A soldier transitioned from male to female The soldier did not have sex reassignment surgery. Other soldiers have expressed discomfort showering with a female who has male genitalia in an open bay shower configuration. It says those concerned may discuss this with their chain of command. Soldiers must accept living and working conditions that are often austere, primitive, and characterized by little or no privacy. All soldiers will use building, bathroom, shower facilities associated with their gender marker. Okay, so and then it goes on and it says facilities will not be designated, modified, or constructed to make transgender areas only. Any modifications made must be available to all soldiers to use. Accommodations cannot isolate, stigmatize the transgender soldier. Okay, so I'm going to read some more, but there's the reason why I find like a lot of this troubling, man, is because they're forcing a way of life on people that is totally unnecessary, because these people make up less than 0.5% of the population. All right, so there's a small number of these people, and even fewer of these people are joining the military.
You know what? That was the whole point that Chappelle made, is like, how come you guys only been around 40 years and you have more rights than my people that have been around 400? You're trying to alter all of society for less than 1% of the society. That is complicated. It's power, but it's power being misused. And it's really difficult because you don't, being a black person, you know, I know what racism is like. I don't know what some other things are like. And it drives you crazy whenever somebody sits there and says, I'm not a racist, but, you know, so you fight really hard not to have that type of attitude. I'm not a sexist. I have no problem with transgender. It's just the fact that when you want to change all of society over you, you know, over a very small group. Or the funniest thing that Dave Chappelle said that was really profound is like, we just want you to accept us for who we are, but you didn't accept yourself for who you were. So the idea that you're going to force women, regular women who are born women and are still women, to shower with somebody who wasn't that, or who hasn't had the surgery, the gender reassigning surgery. Like, if you wanted to argue the fact about the surgery part, I'm like, okay, this person's had the surgery, they've had everything done, you know. But I just remember also when we were kids, and they would talk about men having sex change, how there was like some kind of psychological evaluation that had to be done before you had it. I'm sure they did away with that stuff, but I remember that was a big deal, that these guys went through some kind of evaluation, and when you pass that evaluation, like, okay, yeah, this guy really is a woman, then they would do the surgery. Now I think it's just based on money. Like, if you got the money to cut your dick off, then you're a woman, and I think that's all it is now. And you see, and I guess the issue is when you see these people who are 230 pounds, you know, all muscle, and they're beating up on women.
You still have a man's bone density.
So some do. I've seen some women you couldn't tell. You know, a lot of them Asians and the Mexicans and
no. You're missing what I'm talking about. That little motherfucker can still lift weights and still get a man's strength. But listen. Hey, before you go too far afield, I want to continue with this document. So, all right. Then it relates to pronoun usage. A soldier approaches their commander and requests the commander direct all soldiers in the unit to address them and use the pronouns common to their self-identified gender without completing the gender marker change that's outlined in the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System. Okay. Inform the soldier, so the solution is inform the soldier that the Army recognizes a soldier's gender by the soldier's gender marker. Coincident with that gender marker, the soldier must use the proper pronoun. When appropriate, when addressing other soldiers, should expect to be addressed by the pronoun appropriate for the gender marker. So the only pronouns they're gonna respect are the pronouns that are gender-based and not Z's or ZMZ. So understanding that soldiers who have transitioned gender may remain susceptible to medical conditions associated with their birth gender. Transgender soldiers will be treated the same as any other soldier with a given medical solution. Commanders and units will comply with all policies related to pregnant soldiers. Now, culturally, it appears that the military is no more. What was once defined as an institution has been traded for something undeniably new. So, okay. This is also a military that has the Army, actually, in particular. There was an officer that was caught teaching a class on devil worshipping occultism.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how is this relevant to combat? I'm like, unless there's something that you need people to know, about a particular enemy, if it's not relevant to that, why are you teaching this? Unless this guy is trying to recruit people. So he's teaching his class in hopes that, students or soldiers will come up to him after the class, like, hey, that was pretty cool. I like that. It was like, well, hey, we have a meeting, behind the officers' barracks every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then we put on robes and burn candles and shit. Wait a minute.
Yep.
Hold on. What? So, okay. There's part of the reason why I think the military is bending over backwards for this shit is because recruitment is down. And they're trying to recruit more and more people. And that's why they're making they're making all these rules to allow transgenders into the military. But, okay. This is a problem, man, because now you're basically telling these young guys that, hey, we want you to enlist, you know what I'm saying? If you feel like you're a chick with a dick, you can join. But if you decide and change, you just want to go back to being a man, well, we'll have a pronoun that fits that too. You go back to being sir instead of ma'am. This is a problem. This is a big time fucking problem. The rape issues are not addressed well enough in the military.
Period.
It's a problem. Fort Hood in Austin, Texas has a huge problem with rapes and murders. I mean, this year there were like 3 soldiers that were killed in Fort Hood, and 2 of them were women. And there's all types of, cases of rape on the base. All this does was, what this does is like this opens a Pandora's box for more chaos, right? So if this is the case, and it appears that an army like China, or a country like China, the CCP, wants to break down America from the inside, then they could do that to the military by, from the outside, forcing pressure through these astroturf fake grassroots movements that are pushing for transgender rights in the military. So then that's another front that you're being fought on and you don't realize that you're being attacked from. So psychologically, your soldiers aren't fit for war. Because they have, before they pull that trigger, they have so many questions. Instead of just pull the fucking trigger. I mean, if you look at the drill sergeants of today compared to the drill sergeants of yesterday or years ago, even 20 years ago, they're way more softer on these people. Tressa, I went to high school with Tressa. She has a lifelong military career. She's still working for the Army around the world. And, she complained about this before, about how drill sergeants are way more soft now compared to when she enlisted in the mid 90s. But all this is relevant because it all winds up downstream where you are. And if they're pouring Kool-Aid into the water supply, then everybody winds up drinking the Kool-Aid, if you know what I'm saying. So if you're standing downstream and the person upstream pisses in the water and you go to get some of that water and you want to be all cute and filter it with your little REI cup and shit, you're drinking piss from that guy upstream. You're drinking that person's Kool-Aid, man.
Look, what my brother's telling you is that bullshit is bullshit no matter who gives it to you. It doesn't matter if it comes from the military. It doesn't matter if it comes from the media. It doesn't matter if it comes from somebody you work with. It's still bullshit. And the idea that the military is already softer, what my brother's telling you. And there's a problem with that because that's where you want people to be difficult. That's where you want people to become better versions of themselves through whatever means necessary. I get it. The military has been racist and sexist, and they say some crazy shit. And so to avoid lawsuits for probably sexual harassment and racial harassment, I get it. So they had to do certain things, but the fact of the matter is that you still can be hard on a person without using the N word. You can force people to excel without using these different things, but making the military softer is not the way to go, because I get people don't like to work hard anymore. People don't want to be in the military. So you're doing all these things to change his image, but you really don't need to change his image. We just need stronger people. Hell, what's going to happen is everybody in the military is going to be a minority. You're going to have all these black people and these Mexicans and these foreign people in the military because they're the ones who aren't afraid of hard work. But if you come, the idea that you're trying to accommodate transgenders and force them to shower with regular women, that's, like I said, that all you're doing is inviting these negative situations, and nobody wants to talk about those.
Okay, so let's cover a different sector of society for a second, because we're going to continue with this cotton candy pimp hand and show you the way academia thinks of the public. So there was a paper that was published by the Western Michigan University School of Medicine, and it was published in August of 2018 under the banner of bioethics, and it's about compulsory moral bioenhancement, and the title is compulsory moral bioenhancement should be covert. And what this is talking about is how there are arguments amongst people in the tech and biotech industries of whether things should be forced on the public without telling them, without without their consent. And so some of these things are things that are put into, pharmaceuticals or vaccines or these types of issues. But I'm going to read a little bit of it. So it says, advancement in technology and globalization create many opportunities. Among them are not only greater opportunities to enhance our capacities for cognition, but also to use those enhanced capacities to cause ultimate harm, which is an event of series of events that brings about either the annihilation of humanity or a condition of living that is so poor that life is not worthwhile. Global in scope, ultimate harm is characterized by high rates of death, and for those that survive, immense suffering. Yeah. So they're talking about plagues and global warming and terrorists and short-sighted scientists unleashing a plague. Some argue that a cognitive enhancement increases in scope and availability, the potential for ultimate harm being greater, especially when conjoined with some of the possible catalysts of ultimate harm. But an event or series of events doesn't have to be caused by an agent or agents to be ultimate harm. A large meteor or a supernova could bring an ultimate harm. It says there are two scientists, last name Persson, Persson, and Savulescu, claim that in order to prevent the greater possibility of ultimate harm, it is necessary for humans to be morally enhanced. More specifically, it is necessary to morally bioenhance the population in order to prevent ultimate harm. Moral bioenhancement is the potential practice of influencing a person's moral behavior by the way of biological intervention upon their moral aptitudes, motivations, and disposition. The technology that may permit moral bioenhancement is on the scale between non-existent and nascent, but common examples of potential interventions include infusing water supplies with pharmaceuticals, that's what the Nazis did, that enhance empathy or altruism, or otherwise intervening on a person's emotions or motivations in an attempt to influence the person's moral behavior. Dude,
look, we've been through this with the Nazis and putting fluoride in the drinking water. Fluoride makes you more malleable. It makes you more likely to obey, and you're essentially talking about the same thing. It's really frustrating when people don't use history as a guide to their behavior.
There was a document that was published in 2008 by T. Douglas, and it's called Moral Enhancement, and it's in the Journal of Applied Philosophy. So, but I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read some more from this document. That's from the on bioethics. So, okay, this clearly like triggered a lot of controversy in the scientific community, but there is a growing number of people in these positions of science and tech that have this. They have this idea that people should just be, they have this Elon Musk attitude towards people, which is cold and detached. All right, so okay, this is just crazy shit, dude. Like, but I'm reading this to show people that this is real. This is going on, and all these people that are early adopters of technology and medicine need to read the fine print. So I'm going to go on. In one section it says Compulsory Moral Bioenhancement, and under that header it says, given the costs of not preventing ultimate harm are indefinitely high, there is no intervention the costs of which would outweigh utility of the prevention of ultimate harm. Thus an intervention is necessary to prevent ultimate harm. The intervention would actually prevent ultimate harm. Then the intervention ought to be carried out, because the cost of not doing so is indefinitely high. Moral bioenhancement is necessary because as cognitive enhancement makes causing ultimate harm more accessible to nefarious moral agents, ultimate harm is much more likely unless everyone is enhanced. Where it is used to require an extraordinarily coordinated effort to cause ultimate harm now or in the near future, it only takes one person. Thus, moral bioenhancement ought to be compulsory for everybody. Compulsory, take that word out, means forced.
It's real simple. The way they introduce this shit right here is they start in the grade schools. They start a media campaign. They start in magazines and shit like that. Then all the kids will ask for it. What they'll do is that they'll give it to the elites. They'll give it to the rich white kids first. And then, of course, the black people will like, I don't want my kids left out. The next thing you know, you're doing it to them. And all of a sudden, you got a bunch of fucking sociopaths and psychopaths, all because it wasn't anything to do. And so that's how you push that kind of stuff.
Dude, listen, I'm outdoors working yesterday, and it's 95 degrees with the heat index, probably higher. And there's people walking around with masks on their face. And I'm like, yo, man, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? Like, what is wrong with you? You're outdoors and it's hot as shit.
Okay. I'm going to get in trouble, so fuck it. Look, me and you had a conversation about 2 or 3 podcasts ago where I was telling you about, look, the way to get stronger or the way to live longer is by eating damaged fruit that's not damaged in the store, but damaged on the vine, and those antibodies and those powerful chemicals that go into that fruit makes it stronger. In fact, old boy was talking about there's a big deal with Morocco olive oil. The olive oil from Morocco, because it's so desolate and the land is so bad, the olive oil from there has all these super free radicals. So it's obvious whenever something is put under pressure or forced to, encounter different things, you get stronger. I think that's what happened with slavery. I think that the idea of slavery was to make black people weaker, but I think instead it made people stronger and smarter. I think that people don't realize that. But this is just the opposite. I think that for years we thought the ruling class thought they would crush us with force. Instead, you made diamonds. You understand? By applying that pressure, mistreating us, doing all the things you did, you made us stronger. Now I think they realize the error of their ways, and they're going for this, like you said, this velvet pimp hand. They're doing just the opposite. They're making everybody weak and stupid, and they're making everybody worry about fashion and the Real Housewives of this and the Kardashians that, and reality show this and that kind of stuff. And so now, all of a sudden, that the world is ripe for the picking, all because of the luxury that people want. I remember people didn't want to be rich and famous. Now everybody wants to be rich and famous. Nobody wants to work. And you got that's gonna make this shit that's coming a lot easier. Because you're not making people better, you're making them less of people, making them worse. And so I think that's how this is going to transpire. I think right now this is the closest we've ever been to the fucking Illuminati winning, is because everybody wants to be Illuminati now. Everybody wants to be the famous and in charge. So, but that's not the way to go. You know, and like you, my
But
friend just
okay, but
explained
check this out though.
compulsory.
So you were talking about weak people and strong people a second ago.
Yeah,
Strong people will fight because they have the grit, because they've been forged in fire. Weak people will submit much easier, much easier. You know, they come from a life of comfort, so they run to that comfort. They cling to that comfort, and they'll do whatever it
they
takes
think
to
being
stay
comfortable.
comfortable.
Yep.
Yes, yes. So that's what I'm saying is like you're up against that system and the people around you at the same time. Now, this is the crazy part. Now, what separates you from those people in the system is spirituality. That system does not have the same type of spirituality that you do. They practice the dark arts. The people around you are just confused and they're meek, and they've been driven to think that God doesn't exist and they shouldn't have a belief system. And so that then, you know, atheism is pushed, agnosticism, and Gnosticism is pushed.
Nihilism is pushed too.
And nihilism, like people who are just black pilled, meaning like they just think everything is going to end shitty and there's no hope. Those people have no hope. So, but a person with true spirituality will realize they cannot be defeated, that their soul cannot be taken. It can't be abducted and sucked out of them by some aliens who don't have them, who are from 45,000 years in the future. And, you know, they lost their soul. So they're trying to figure out, they're digging in the crates and trying to find some old samples they can get to get it cracking, to get the party started in 45,000 years from now.
Like I said, I don't think people understand that's the point of religion. You know, when the first time you take a sociology class in college, they hit you with the European shit, and it sticks with a lot of black folks. And I'm not saying it matters, but you know, the first thing you learn is that religion is a tool used by the bourgeoisie to control the proletariat, and people run with that. I got so many black folks reciting that, but what you got to understand is
they don't get it though. They don't really get it.
They don't get it. They understand that they're being manipulated. They understand that Christianity has been used as a blunt tool to control our people. They get that. I can never be a Christian, but the idea of religion is a tool for spirituality. It's a tool to get you closer to spirituality. That's all. That's what religion is supposed to be when it comes from Africa or even Asia or these other places. You know, I get it. You're reading a European book, but you got to understand that is a tool to achieve spirituality. You know, and if you don't, if you look at it the other way, then yeah, these preachers, you see them manipulate people. The rich people love to give us rules that they don't abide by. All that shit. That's all true. But that's not the purpose. This is a gift from God that is supposed to teach you to be like, okay, these are the rules. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to act. This is how you need to treat your brother and sister. You shouldn't be grabbing little boys and little girls. You shouldn't be doing this. And then you ascend. This is about ascension, you know. But again, if you look at it from that European point of view, if you look at it from that European book, then like, yeah, religion's all bad. I can never do that. And not knowing where their religion even comes from, not knowing where this
but see, what happens is you're becoming a nihilist, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't want to be manipulated. But then, if you don't want to be manipulated, then don't be. But you don't sit here and put up these barriers to your own spirituality and stop your own spiritual growth, all because you're afraid of being manipulated. That's a detriment to yourself. So what you're saying is, well, I don't want to be a slave, so I'm going to cut my arms off. That makes perfect sense. No, it doesn't. Well, if you don't want to be a slave, fight. Because the thing that they want that you provide is also the same thing that you can use to stop them from abusing you and misusing you. So, like I said, we are turning our face away from our own power. We are denying our own power just because we don't want to be manipulated or we don't want to be used I'm smarter than you. That's another thing. You know, I'm not smarter than anybody. If you ask the right question, somebody can seem like a genius. You ask the right question, somebody can seem like an idiot. So that's what's important to understand where you are and how to achieve. But this idea that we need some outside influence to make you smarter, we got the education system, which is already corrupt. So can you imagine? Well, this will expand your mind. We want everybody to think alike.
Check this out.
That's that Twilight Zone shit.
Yes, it is. So let's move on and let's tie this into Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21. So Agenda 21 is global. Agenda 2030 is domestic and national. National, not international. All right. So Agenda 21 is international. Agenda 2030 is national. So you're hearing this word being thrown around now. It's called ESG. ESG is an acronym for Environmental Social Governance. ESG takes the holistic view that sustainability extends beyond just environmental issues. ESG is the best characterized as a framework that helps stakeholders understand how an organization is managing risks and opportunities related to environmental, social, and governance criteria. So, the United Nations Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development informs government policies to restrict farming and transform the food systems in different parts of the world. So, the 2030 Agenda is a plan of action, and their plan is to achieve 17 Sustainable Development Goals. SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. The goals in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development were adopted by all UN member states in 2015. Now, Ban Ki-moon, who was the Secretary General of the UN at that time, called the 2030 Agenda the Global Declaration of Independence. All right, so really what it is it is actually in defiance of the United States Declaration of Independence. Because instead of being independent nations, everybody will now be interdependent. And so that 2030 Agenda covers every element of human life, every element of the economy, including global wealth, redistribution. Anyway, okay. So basically what these motherfuckers are doing, man, is like they want to control the food supply from the farms to the groceries to the store and the pricing.
Now, how they going to do it, though? You already said.
Well, hang on a second. So part of that is taking over farmland. And the Sustainable Development Agenda that was created in the 70s, when the United Nations tried to define it as a conference in Vancouver, Canada. At that conference, which was the first UN conference of human settlements known as Habitat, in Vancouver, they adopted the Vancouver Declaration. And there's a report that provided the outlines and recommendations for UN member states. There's an excerpt from this report, and it said, land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals and subject to pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, therefore contributes to the social injustice. He thinks this is a war taking place against farmers and ranchers, especially those who are independent or those who are not part of the corporate farming machine.
Look, this is how Marxism works. You sit here and say that you're not fit to own anything, so it's better if the government owns it. And that way, you can't be mistreating a resource. We see it all the time. The point I was making before is that they use this, what's that word that you use, that not globalization, but sustainability. So that's the big key word when they say sustainability. What they're trying to say is that it's an environmental issue and that this is about the environment. And if you don't handle the environment right, which I am an environment guy, I do want our resources used properly. I don't want animals killed for no reason. I don't want oil dumped in my seas. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with ecology, but I do not agree with the idea that the common man doesn't know what to do with this resource. One of the things that I'm dealing with, on a personal tip, is I work for a railroad. So what's happening? You have all these venture capitalists and all these investing people buying up railroad stock, and now the railroad's not being run by railroaders, is being run by investors. And all they care about is getting that stock price going up. But the problem with that, just like that land resource, the railroad feeds the entire country, supplies goods to the entire country. That's why you have this bottleneck when it comes to commodities and supply chain and all this other stuff, because you got people running it not like a railroad, not trying to get goods to everybody, but just trying to make a profit. So beware of that kind of talk. When people try to when they use something like it's just a cash cow and it just makes money for them because it's too big to fail, and you have government subsidies and all this other shit. Nobody has to run it right. They can run it how they want. They can lay off a bunch of people. They can do all this crazy shit just to raise the stock price, and that's what they did. So this is for short-term gains, but it's destroying the whole country in the process. That's the same thing that's going on when you sit here and read this stuff, and it's telling you, oh well, this is too important to be in the hands of civilians or private people. What they're trying to tell you is that these farmers are too important, and that land is too big a commodity. It doesn't need to be in their hands. And then you got somebody like Bill Gates who owns damn near all the farmland in Nebraska now, all that corporate farmland, and now he's in charge. So that's what you got to watch out for. They're literally taking your power. Then they're going to only give you the food they want to give you, or they'll spray whatever pesticides that they want to put on the food.
All right, but look at China, for example. What they do is the CCP forces peasants to move to megacities, and the farmers are killed in South Africa. And the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC in the United States, proposed a new rule that could bankrupt small and medium farmers.
Yep.
If you control the food supply, you control everything. One of the things that the communists love to do is create scarcity and create dependence. As long as you have independent people who can take care of themselves, there really is no need for the government to run your life or to control everything that you do.
You don't ask the government for shit. If you feed yourself, you don't ask the government to feed you. There used to be a joke. They don't want you living in the boondocks. They don't want you living out in the middle of nowhere, because those people who live out in the middle of nowhere
are self-sufficient.
If you got your own water supply, you are self-sufficient. And that's how this country was found. This whole country was.
People forget, though, that Black America did not really experience the Great Depression the way white people did, because of segregation. We were in a bubble, and there was a bubble that caused us to thrive despite everything else that was going on around us.
The two reasons: farming, and many of us weren't depending on them. The same thing that insulated these other small minority people, like whether they were Mexican or they were insulated, because you bought from other black folks. You bought from black folks who had a black lawyer, black doctor, black everything, and we weren't part of the stock. We weren't part of the stock market because you didn't let us. So since you didn't let us, we weren't affected by the Great Depression. We weren't affected by these different things. We weren't allowed to be.
The money never left the community. It stayed in the community. So there you had black banks, black businesses, black farms, completely self-sufficient.
So many of us thrived during your economic turndown. And like I said, that was the whole problem with World War I. World War I, it didn't affect Africa. It didn't affect Native American. It didn't affect these people. But then all of a sudden World War II happens and everybody joins in. You got more people come to the cities. Well, you're not self-sufficient. When you live in the city, it's damn near impossible to be self-sufficient unless you're in a ghetto or in a community where you depending on your own people. Like, okay, I got a farmer over here, I got a carpenter over here, I got somebody over here making wood, I got somebody over here, and so then even then there's no stock market. It's just you buying from your people who brought it over on their boats or have their land someplace, but you're still not part of that city. So when that economic turndown happens, it doesn't affect your people. And so, look, I get it. You don't want us participating. You just want our money, and that's what black people are in trouble right now, because if the shit hit the fan, most of us would not be able to sustain. We would not be able to take care of ourselves.
The whole idea of using food as a weapon has been used by communist regimes for 100 plus years. All right.
At least 200
and
decades.
It's also the people who are promoting Agenda 2030 and their SDGs, their Sustainable Development Goals, and the World Economic Forum. Those who created the controlled demolition of the food supply. They want to basically want to restructure the food supply for better control. Control by who? Because in America, the more diffuse the farm system is, the more like independent contracting farms there are producing food. And then so it allows for a greater diversity of the food supply. If you control all the farms and you control what type of soil amendments are being put in the soil,
what's being planted,
you control what type of seeds are being sprouted and what type of plants and food is being created. So then you get back to this whole compulsory moral bioenhancement and how, okay, we're going to genetically engineer this food to make you passive because it's good for society, because it's good for sustainable development, because what you're seeing is all of this is a greater system of control. Now, you can call this the New World Order and the Illuminati if you want to. It doesn't matter. None of that really matters at this point because it's clear now these people are butt naked out in front doing what they're doing, and they're putting a nice velvet glove on that pimp hand before they smack the shit out of you.
Look, this we've already discussed that. Like, for instance, fluoride in the water makes people more malleable, lowers IQ points and all that stuff. But when I was growing up, I knew about fluoride was in the water because we were told in grade school, hey, fluoride in the water is for your teeth. It helps your teeth. It makes your teeth stronger. Yes, even that is a lie, a half-ass lie. Do the research. Fluoride makes juvenile teeth stronger and harder. But after you become adulthood, it makes your teeth brittle and brown. It actually changes color. Hell, I remember my mom, her back teeth were brown. It's because of the fluoride in the water. So we were told that it makes your teeth stronger. That's how they get you. And they make this whole lie not just believable, but they put it everywhere to where, yeah, I learned that in high school. I learned that in grade school. I learned that when I was a kid, fluoride this. And so then it becomes part of your thought process. And the more research is done, you find out so much of the shit that we know to be true is a lie. So being manipulated has become a way of life for these people. And, all we want is to be left alone. And it doesn't work like that. My friend is telling you, my brother's telling you, like, look, if one person owns all the farmland, then that one person can dictate everything. We already know glyphosates are bad, but again, you won't get rid of it. Right now, there's a lawsuit against Skittles because they have that oxide, whatever that shit is in there. It alters your DNA. And the thing is, you have European nations who already sued, and so they took it out over there. So why would you not take it out over here? Why would you wait until somebody sues you to do that? Huh? If like, say, for instance, they made a mistake and didn't know that shit was in there or didn't realize it's preservative caused genetic damage. Okay, but then the first two nations over in Europe that sued you or brought it out, like, so you literally took it out of the product. Why did you take it out of the product over here? So there's an agenda already out there that we're unaware of.
Right?
Why would Eminem, Mars, and whatever do that? So yeah.
But the danger of all this is that when times are really hard, people don't give any energy to anything other than the essentials.
And then survival. That is correct. So when times are tough, you're spending your time trying to survive.
The economy is in the toilet and it's getting worse and worse. And next month and the month after, August and September, pay close attention to all the news that you hear about the food supply, because food commodities are going to take a hit and there's going to be a problem getting access to food, and the prices of food are going to go up even more than they are right now. Even though that inflation is really high, given the recent consumer price index that comes out every month. And it showed for the month of June that inflation has gone up a great deal. And so,
yeah, they say it's 7%, but it's more like 23% if you actually do the correct math.
Right. So then, okay, but you look at that, and then you add to that, if the food supply takes a hit, So then the food is already high, and then it's hard to get access to the food. You have people that are afraid. You have people, hold on, you have people that being afraid, and then what they do is they create the problem and they bring you the solution.
Solution, yes. I was going to say, all I said was that they're creating scarcity on purpose. And even if it was real, they still would they say never waste a good catastrophe. When shit's going wrong, the stronger the people in charge just get more charge. That's all. I know it sounds dumb to say it like that, but that's all that happens. If when shit goes bad, they cement their position. Literally, watch the stock market. The entire market is down. Everybody is broke, but the rich folks, what do they do? That's a bearish market. They buy. So when these stocks start tanking, they start buying, because when the stocks go up, all it does is increase their position, makes them stronger, makes them richer. So the thing is, while we're barely surviving, the poor people, the people on the bottom, and that's another issue that we got going on. Even when it comes to taxes, rich people don't pay taxes, poor people don't pay taxes, the middle class does. But this is a war in the middle class. So you got to recognize it for what it is. You need to be growing your own stuff. You need to be getting all the shit we talked about in past podcasts. That doesn't change. But the idea that we just said these intellectuals are saying that we'll need some, what you call it, moral, how they fix you. Moral enhancements is how they put it.
Compulsory moral bioenhancement.
Yeah, compulsory, which you said is forced. Bio is genetic. Enhancement is improvement. So who's to say this is an improvement? And like I said, that's what I was going to bring up earlier when I said Twilight Zone. Me and you grew up watching those kind of shows, and those shows always alluded to that kind of stuff. Like, hey, this is a bad idea. I remember they had the one where everybody looked alike. So when you hit 16 or 20, they changed you so everybody looked alike. They said this gets rid of racism, sexism, favoritism, and all the isms. But what if I don't want to look like this person? Oh, there's something wrong with you then. So we grew up watching those kind of things, and it didn't teach you how to think, but it broadened how you would look at the situation. Because I learned a lot. I was like, man, you're right. I don't want the same thing as everybody else. I really don't. And that's how things are different. You don't have those type of TV shows now. You got some sci-fi shit here and there, but you don't have anything that would possibly make you go against the government. You don't have anything that would possibly make you go against these corporations. We talked about how Bill Gates does this shit. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have made a lot of people sick and killed a lot of people. And nobody does anything to that guy. I grew up where there was assassination attempts on presidents every year. Reagan, Gerald Ford. The people like Gerald Ford. They still shot at his ass. So I'm like, well, what kind of society are we in now where nobody is upset with how things are run? And instead, they believe, oh, I can't do nothing about it. Go over here. And that's also the brainwashing, is that, again, Trump is a dickhead, but he should have showed everybody in America that anybody can run for any office. And that's until we get regular people in these positions, we won't fix shit. And also, the other problem is, until you start reading these bills, there's a lot of shit in there. This shit could have already been done, or the funding for this may have been procured already, and they're already changing. Okay, GMO food, genetically modified organism, that might be how they're going to disseminate this shit. So it might be done already, making everybody all malleable and like, oh no, I'm smarter than you because I think like this. No, look, we're warning you about this shit because it starts out like my friend says, the velvet PIMPHAND. What he's trying to explain to you is that this is some gradual shit. First things first, when it comes to sex, sex is a definite. And next, that's how old girl who wrote Harry Potter got in trouble. She said sex is definite. Now, there are people who are born hermaphrodites who have both organs. That's one thing. But it's another thing when you sit here and say that you can be anything and that you should acknowledge me before I change and all this other shit. No, bruh. No. And at some point in time, yes, in some point in time, it's really difficult. Like I said, when you're trying to talk to your kids about this kind of stuff, you don't want to be a dick. You don't want to be a jerk. You don't want to be these white folks that say, I'm not a racist, but I don't want to be like, hey, I'm not this, but And once you do that, then your kids tune you out and don't listen. But I've already observed how, like, wait till your kid is around somebody who wants to be referred to a certain way. At first, it's a good idea. They love it. But after about 3 or 4 days, that person is pushing themselves on you, and then your kid comes
It
back
doesn't
like, "Hey,
stop there. Like, okay, so it's one thing for a person to say, I believe this, I believe that, cool. But all those people are soapbox preachers. They will not shut up about how they feel about that particular topic. Once you have told them,
exactly.
hey, this is how I feel. Cool, got it. Message received. Beyond that point, I don't want to hear about this shit no more.
But and that's all they talk about is that one subject.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
Like it's more to me and you than race. Like when I see a chance to like educate somebody or let them know like, hey, that shit could be offensive, or hey, this, that, that, or what piss people, how I piss is the way I talk to you is the same way I talk to white folks. They're like, hey man, you can't talk to white folks like that.
Why? Is there some type of like rule that says you can't? That's a human being, and this is the United States, and I don't give a fuck.
But that's the brainwashing. That's the manipulation. It's so embedded into people's identity that if you say, like, I talk like this, I tell people like, hey, no, that's racist. Hey, maybe that's not what you think. Hey, this happened or this. They're saying that this before you're black. There are people in settlements here that are over 50,000 years old. That tells you right there that that kind of stuff. I talk that way all the time because but that's dealing with is like literally we have a role for like a society full of snitches. Can't do that. If I do it too much, then I'm trying to an authority figure. That's some crazy shit. I remember getting in trouble in kindergarten for being a tattletale. Like, teacher, this person did this. The teacher would turn to Miss, who, and say, "Don't be a tattletale."
Yeah.
What?
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but they were teaching us to have character. Also, they weren't just teaching us, our ABCs and 1 + 1. No.
This when you hear me say you're raising an adult, you're raising a man, you're raising a woman. They were raising men and women. They weren't raising children. That's how you fucked up. These people who raise children, all you're doing is coddling them, protecting them, and not telling them the truth.
But the whole world is being coddled now. They're nerfing the entire world, man. With all these like self-parking cars and self-driving cars. I mean, wait until like you're an outlaw if you have a fucking driver's license or you drive your car yourself. What is that world gonna be like?
You want to say some deep shit? Look, so what do you do when I don't even know how to say this shit? Look, literally, these people you can't say anything to them. So because I don't want you to say anything to me about what I'm doing wrong. I don't say anything to you about what you're doing wrong. And the next thing you know, you got people taking showers with men and women raping each other. All because of like, hey, that sounds kind of fair. But she's a woman now, but she still has a penis. I don't want to hurt her feelings because I don't want you hurting my feelings. So I don't speak up. And I sit here and let the shit go. And then when this woman gets raped or something's done to her, I'm like, well, what did you do to deserve it? Because we love victim blaming. Like, so we look for ways to avoid the actual fixing the situation, the actual remedy. We avoid the actual remedy because it might be painful. And that's the whole thing. Sometimes remedies are painful. Sometimes I know I'm fat, and the only thing that's going to fix me being fat is my discipline. So right now, since we don't think people have discipline anymore, we have to give it to them. The government gives it to you. That kind of bullshit. And I'm like, and we already told you, we already warned you about the social engineering because it's not coming, it's here. That you're going to get points on Facebook. You're going to get this up. You'll look. I've been in Facebook jail for a month. Oh well, ain't no big deal. People ask me why because I posted something on Facebook that I got from Facebook. That's all I ever do. So yes, they're spanking you socially, so you will conform to what they want. And arguing about somebody's sex, not their sexuality, but arguing about
that is a distraction. That is a distraction from the real things that are going on, because really what's happening while this news story about, this transgender, this and that, blah, 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 the real shit that is going on behind the scenes is being kept quiet. And these people that are buying up, these corporations buying up farmland and going into local level city halls and county and creating ordinances that prohibit land ownership from an individual. These are problems.
What about these companies buying up whole neighborhoods? Before, you had landlords. You've always had landlords. But what do you do when you have a company that owns 1,000 houses in one area? And all of a sudden, they got some kind of
that's
crazy...
BlackRock. That's BlackRock. Now,
exactly, yes.
Now, they bought up all of the single-family homes that were available during the pandemic, and they wanted to turn them into rental properties because they are part of Agenda 2030, and they want to get rid of home ownership and have people renting and working a gig economy job where they can't make enough to pay for a house, to pay a mortgage, but they can make enough to pay for this Elon Musk little box house that's basically a shipping crate deluxe. You know what I'm saying?
And the banks love it because the banks know the economy is going to crash. So they don't want a regular person buying a house because when the economy crashes, that person is going to get foreclosed on. But if the economy crashes, the BlackRock and these investors, they'll be able to weather the storm and still make their payments, and that's what the bank likes. So you literally are jerking each other off.
But what kind of person are you that works for BlackRock? So then basically what you become is you're a vampire familiar. You're that person that hangs out with vampires, knowing that vampires murder human beings.
You that house Negro that I'll be warning you about. That, oh my God, Master, you see that over there? Or like all you're doing. So, I want to say it correctly. Somebody broke down what happened in South Africa, and it was very deep. And I believe it was Chappelle when he was talking about, like, look, when you arrest individuals, nothing happens because they're replaced by another individual. But when you tear down a whole society and build it back up from the ground up, then you can fix everything. Because that white guy that's being racist, he's only being what he was taught to be, and he's only benefiting because that's how it was set up. So you have to attack everything and everybody. You can't just attack one racist. You can't just attack one organization. You have to fix everything at the same time, or it does not matter.
I saw some ridiculous ass article that says colorism is the new racism. I'm like, no, it's not. Colorism is a psyop, and the fact that you're reading this and getting upset about this article means that this diversion trick is working on your ass.
Look, I told you, as Black people, we fight hard not to be the people who oppressed us, and by doing that, we get oppressed even more. Does that make sense? Like literally, when you sit here, like, okay, I don't want to shoot the Klansmen. I don't want to do to them what they're doing to me. I don't want to beat up the cops. Yeah, that's the wrong attitude to have. Have you seen that? Hey Roscoe, have you seen that commercial for that guy who's running for office in Arkansas? No, in Arizona. Excuse me. It's a black guy, and he's like, "You want to know why I need a 30-round clip?" And it's all these Klansmen running. It's all these guys in hoods running on his property. I need all 30 rounds and then some. And it shows him shooting at the Klansmen.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Then it says like LaRon whatever, running for senator of Arizona, whatever it is. But that's the reality that nobody wants to look at. When people are coming for you and they're intimidating you and they're trying to take your land and they're trying to lynch your wife and kids and rape everybody, you need more than 30 rounds. You need to be able to protect yourself. But again, we're being bombarded with all these gun control people. Now you see what happened to the one. You saw the one where they tried to shoot up the mall. And the young kid pulled up. He was there with his girlfriend. Pulled
that
out
was
the
in
gun.
Indiana.
I thought it was Indiana, but I almost said Illinois. Indiana. But that's not the most important part. The most important part was these anti-gunners tried to attack him. This one lady called him a vigilante. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And they went nuts on her. How is he a vigilante? A vigilante is somebody running around like Batman looking for crime. This guy was a victim and wouldn't be a victim, and shot the guy 3 times. Hit, he was, they say 40 yards away or 40 feet away, 40 like something like 40 yards away, and capped the guy 3 times, saved everybody. So the reason they don't let those stories out because it doesn't fit the agenda. other thing I wanted to bring up earlier when you were talking, you were saying some deep shit. So I sent you a video of they're videoing this guy who works for CNN. He's at some kind of Starbucks and he's telling them, hey, the next big thing is sustainability. It's going to be global warming. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, look, we're going to be showing stuff about global warming all the time. That's all we're going to be showing. If that's the next big thing that we're into, we're already being told. And they're asking him questions. How you? He said, I don't know. We're going to be showing them ice caps melting and showing the crops burning up and shit like that.
Okay, but at the same time, then you go to the movies and you see trailers for films coming out like Maze Runner and The Hunger Games, and like, oh, these movies are so popular because
Squid Game.
And Squid Game. They do is keep preparing you and showing these movies about these heroes or heroines that are in this oppressive society and they got to do whatever it takes to survive. You're not giving me any fucking solutions. All you're telling me that this is the world that you're going to be living in and this is going to be your life.
Here's the crazy part. When me and you growing up, we can name the movies like that. You had Logan's Run, then you had Running Man.
Soylent Green.
So Soylent Green was along those lines, yeah. But that's it.
No, Soylent Green is this future because Soylent Green was fake food that was made out of people and soybeans and lentil.
Oh my God. Oh man. I hate when you're right. You're a dick. But you're right about that. I never watched the whole thing.
And strawberries. I watched the whole fucking thing. I've seen it a million times. Dude, and then strawberries were like $3,000 and shit. You know what I'm saying? And like the last, like the only like botanical garden or like the only trees in New York were on this rooftop in this like 20 by 20 tent. You know what I'm saying? And only the rich people can go into this garden. And the crazy part about it is like nobody wore suits anymore. Everybody wore like these fucking like just khakis and like, you know, Cabana Boy shirts and shit. Cause like, you know, the fucking climate was all fucked up.
It's only funny because have you seen the rompers for men? Men rompers with shorts and that's like a man romper.
Man, anybody wearing that shit, dude. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you're mumbling, but you know good and damn well. It's motherfuckers right now. Yes. Like, oh, for the love of Christ.
Right. But you got to have your nuts cut off first before you wear some shit like that.
Because they don't fit. Look, back to what I'm saying. They literally only had like 3 or 4 like that. You know, growing up, the movies were about other shit, about cowboys, about spies, about kicking ass, about taking names, you know, that kind of shit. And so then now to get you ready is they got the same TV show and the same movie, just a different title, over and fucking over and over. Squid Games ain't nothing but Hunger Games. Hunger Games ain't nothing but, and so.
But now there's a Soylent Green TV show out right now, and it goes by a different name. It's called Moon Haven, and it's about pretty much the world of Soylent Green, where like the Earth can't grow any food, and for 150 years it's been a colony on the moon. That they terraform this big chunk of the moon into looking like the Earth, and they use this technology up there, and they want to bring it back to Earth to like revitalize the Earth. But now this cult that runs the moon doesn't want to give the technology to the humans because they think, oh, once we get there, we're going to be in danger. It's all about control. It's always about control. But it just shows you that these stories are being told over and over and given different names.
Look, the whole issue is that when you don't teach real history, you get really bad results, and that's what's going on right now. And when you watch these other societies where men and women were interchangeable, most of the societies usually ended a short time later, or they were taken over by other societies, and nobody wants to look at that shit. Like when you look at Egypt being overrun, if Egypt had all this technology, they were so much better than everybody else. How come they kept being taken over? That's because at some point they felt they were better than other people, and they were like, okay, we can't be hurt because we're better than, we outlaw weapons. We're not learning from that history. We're not seeing that this is a dominant society. Then all of a sudden, when you stop having weapons, or how about
if you look at like the Romans and the Greeks, when sexual deviance became normal, that is when a society is in decline.
It gets torn down because all you're worried about is sex. You're not worried about taking care of the roads and feeding people and doing what really
Civic
matters.
Responsibilities and duties.
Look, even when you let religion become too big, Do you remember when the Phoenicians took over Egypt? One of the things they did, they had Egyptians worship, a lot of them worship cats. So they put the cats on the shield. So they're like, Egyptians won't shoot me because I got a cat. That's the kind of shit we're talking about. When you become so concerned about dumb shit, and that you don't, the reality is not an issue. And when I say reality is not an issue, when you talk to your kids or your wife or your friends about their feelings, like your feelings do matter, but reality matters too. Feelings are not always reality. Feelings are perception and how you feel about something ain't how it always is. And that's something that's a common theme that we bring up, is that you're not recognizing that because you don't want to hurt this person's feelings, that you will fuck around and destroy a whole society, destroy a whole institution like the army. Because and the problem with that is that these women are being brutalized, which I don't want it to happen, and I hope I'm wrong. But that's a conversation that needs to be had.
That all that does is take their shitty experience in the military and makes it worse, because you're adding another dimension of possibility of violence toward them. So let's wrap this up, man. So basically, what we're talking about, what we're laying out here, is how through ESG, through Agenda 2030, through making transgender, non-surgical,
binary,
manipulated people, allowing them to serve in the military and shower with women, you're pushing all these things on people, and it's non-compliance. Like it's non-consensual. You're doing this, creating all these non-consensual situations that human beings are living in, and people have to push back against these things because they have to see that these are actually psychological warfare attacks from outside states, outside countries. And so
outside influences that don't care about your well-being.
That's right. So then Agenda 2030, that's the United Nations. That's not the United States. Those are other countries telling the United States how they should be conducting themselves and living. But these globalists, these multinational billionaires who have residences in multiple countries, then they don't have one allegiance to a country. And so they believe they can, be skull and bones pirate, a skull and bones pirate, and go about, pillaging and raping on the earth however they choose to, without any consequence whatsoever. And so they're creating the conditions, they're leveling the playing field, and they're using you to help them to level the playing field, to make it easier for them, to create more serfs in this new technocracy, neo-feudalistic landscape, where food is controlled, where people are so confused they don't know how to fight back, they don't know where to begin to question the government. They are being enhanced on, without being told. The water that they're drinking is now poisoned with, thought control, nanotechnology. You have pharmaceuticals and food, which make your kid, born. These kids are now being born on the spectrum because of what's in the vaccines and the pharmaceuticals and in the food. And so a person like that fits into that society easier because they don't question things, and they have less attachment to their humanity, and they're more left-brained. And so they're more, susceptible to being a person that will be, a stormtrooper in this new Fourth Reich Nazi army, or Fifth Reich by now.
Look, don't fall for the bullshit. The idea that somebody will enhance you to make you better, their idea of enhancement is somebody that won't argue.
Dude, hey, let's make it real simple. How many times have you been in a relationship and that person is like, hey, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that, and then you sit down one day and they look at you and be like, you've changed. Yeah, bitch, because I did all the shit that you wanted me to do, and your indecisive control freak ass, which is a horrible combination, basically tried to manipulate me into something else, and then you realize it wasn't what you wanted, and now I've gone down this road with you, and you're like, oh, I'm done. Fuck you. You just wasted my entire fucking time, and I don't get that shit back.
Look, I remember at one point in time, I thought relationship duct tape was different from regular single duct tape, and now I know it's not. When you sit here and change for a relationship too, there's one thing about maturing and like making good decisions. It's another thing when you sit here and cut your balls off. Look, my mom's like, don't be henpecked, argue. And the whole idea, we are so conditioned to think that arguing, speaking up, and fighting is bad. No, it's not. Now, abusing someone is not good, but speaking up for yourself and maintaining your identity and having integrity, that's actually a good thing. And what happens to us is that we're brainwashed into thinking that if I'm in a relationship, I got to do this. Well, right now we're in a relationship with this government, and we need to speak up and fight back, and stop feeling like the other thing is the way to be. Like, oh my God, I don't want to cause problems. I don't want to make waves. They made waves when they try to take your rights to begin with. That's what this shit's about.
Pretty much, yeah. So, look, I mean, go and do your research on ESG and, Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030 and these new gender rules for the United States military and how farmland is being taken away from the small farmer and placed into the hands of corporations, and the food supply is in danger now. Look into all this, because these are issues that aren't going away, and the real issues you need to be digging into and not being caught up by entertainment bullshit stories.
Look up Bill and Melinda Gates. Look at what that organization has done. Look up the oral polio vaccine. Look up the human papillomavirus vaccine they used in the Congo and in Africa. Look at how they done it. Look how much farmland in Nebraska he's bought up. And when you realize that it's one person controlling so much shit and that he hasn't done anything good in the past 50 years, then you'll realize what we're going through. This guy's a eugenicist. His parents were eugenicists. Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood, all that shit. That's what he's a part of. And once you realize that, then you realize, well, this guy has control of my food. What is he doing? He could be putting he could be putting stuff in there right now that make us to where we can't reproduce, and you wouldn't even know because you're buying your food from him. You don't realize it. He could be culling the flock right now. That's when the globalists want population down to 500,000 or 500 million from 7 billion. That's the way to start. Having that guy in control of your food supply is not the way to go. Sorry about that. Go ahead, bro.
It's all good. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.